Political stage, brand new poll numbers just in, showing a new low for the U.S. government. According to the Declaration of Independence, governments derive their authority from the consent of those they govern. According to Rasmussen reports, just 17% of voters say they consent to the current federal government. That is the fewest ever. The man behind those polls is Scott Rasmussen of Rasmussen Reports. Scott, great to have you here. So that's
great to have you back, Megan.
Thank you very much. So that's a new low. Only 17% believe that Congress is governing with their consent.
Well, it's the federal government, and it's really not just about the current Congress or the current president. Both parties have worked on a bipartisan basis for decades to alienate the American people, and, they've succeeded. No matter how we phrase this question, people are upset. A plurality now believe that selecting people randomly from the phone book would do a better job than the current Congress.
Wow. Speaking of which, one of the things that's been on the table this past week has been who's to blame or to credit for what we saw happen in Washington with the debt ceiling and the arguments back and forth. The term economic terrorist was used to describe some in the Tea Party by some on the left who don't like them. You asked people, are members of the Tea Party economic terrorists in your view, and what'd you find?
29% say yes, most say no, that's not fair. 53% of Democrats, though, half the Democratic Party says yes, they are terrorists, they are economic terrorists. Republicans overwhelmingly reject the comparison. Most unaffiliated voters do as well. I think it's important to point out nobody came out looking good in the whole debacle around the debt ceiling, and most Americans don't think that Congress will deliver even the spending cuts they've already agreed to. But calling the Tea Party members terrorists, not panning out too well.
And speaking of how disapproving they are of those who work in Washington, D.C., it's another new low. You polled and found out that only 6% of voters polled would rate the performance as excellent to good of their congressperson. Just 6%.
That's right. And look, these numbers are showing the same levels of anger and frustration that we saw in November of 2010. Strong disapproval. The president is back up to those levels. 62% say if they could vote to keep or get rid of the entire Congress, they'd say throw them all out.
So, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Because Republicans now run the House. Obviously Democrats still in charge of the Senate. But is it a partisan rebuke, or is it just if you are a lawmaker elected to Congress, they don't like you?
It's blaming whoever's in charge. In 2006, 2008, and 2010, voters voted against the party in power. They are perfectly willing to do so again. They're not happy with either side. 6 out of 10 disapproved of the Republican handling of the debt ceiling. 6 out of 10 disapproved of the Democrats.
So what happens in 2012? Could we see another wave election?
We certainly could. And I think there's a greater danger. Americans are so frustrated. They feel they're voting for things and their congressmen aren't listening. The government is not responding. They voted every year for politicians who promised to cut spending and taxes. But government spending has gone up every year since 1954. People are questioning how come this is happening. Why isn't the system working?
Lastly, you also throw this one out there. Voters are more convinced than ever that most congressmen are crooks?
That's right. 46% say most members of Congress are corrupt. Highest we have ever found. And again, it's measuring up to this overall cynicism. 52% think their own representative in Congress, their own person, is likely to trade votes for cash.
Oh, Scott, that is depressing.
Megan, I'm sorry to welcome you back with this news, but those are the numbers. People are fed up with the way our government is working or not working today.
It's depressing that people believe it, and it would be even more depressing if it were true. Let's hope it's not. Scott, thank you.